Well, the Green MPs have come to the Treasury today to call on the Chancellor Rachel Reeves to rebalance the economy, because the decisions that she's making is putting responsibility on the backs of the disabled, on the poorest in society, those who can least afford to pay. Whereas if she opened the door, if she looked at alternatives, including a wealth tax, the model that the Patriotic Millionaires has proposed, which would be just a 2% tax on your wealth above £10 million, so your first £10 million is free, that has the potential to raise £24 billion a year. Now that's nearly 5 times the amount that would be raised from the proposed welfare cuts on disabled people. So it's really clear that this is a political decision, and the Chancellor could choose differently if she wanted to. That's why we're here today.
There's a different way of doing things. We can rebalance the economy in a way that works for ordinary people if we're willing to ask the very richest in society, the multimillionaires, the billionaires, to pay just modestly more in tax. We're talking a 2% tax on wealth and assets over 10 million that could raise tens of billions a year, and that would enable us to properly invest in our NHS, which is severely overstretched, and we're going to see even more cuts to services under this government this year. And we're also seeing cuts to the most vulnerable people in society, disabled people losing their benefits, pensioners losing their winter fuel allowance. We're saying to Rachel Reeves, there's a different way of doing things. We need to invest in a fairer future and a livable, healthy future for our planet that's going to benefit people and the future generations.
Right-wing media pundits regularly argue that a wealth tax would lead to millionaires taking their wealth elsewhere. Is capital flight an issue that the Greens need a plan to combat?
The Greens have a plan to combat capital flight. It's worth saying, first of all, that both the Green Party's estimates that were in our manifesto before the election and Patriotic Millionaires' estimates for how much a wealth tax would raise does include a Conservative estimate of some people making decisions about where they live following that tax coming in. So we are already accounting for that. That said, there's lots of evidence that shows that it would not affect the decisions for the majority of people. Multimillionaires and billionaires choose where they live for a variety of reasons. They don't make decisions purely on a financial basis. They choose where they live because of where their family is, where their business is based, because they appreciate British culture. They appreciate the theatre district, for example, or the art galleries, and they want to stay in the UK. There's been polling that has shown that, and we've heard anecdotally from a number of members of the Patriotic Millionaires of having spoken to their peers that the argument that all of the multimillionaires and billionaires would just leave the country, there just doesn't seem to be the basis for it. This is a policy that the Labour government has repeatedly, before and since the general election, ruled out as being a possibility, and that's why us Greens are here today at the Treasury to say, please, think again, rebalance our economy for good to change people's lives for the better.
And I wanted to ask, during the election, the IFS claimed that the Greens' economic plans were unlikely to raise the amount claimed without, in their words, real economic cost. Are the Greens' economic plans ambitious enough?
We've worked closely with a range of academics, with groups like the Patriotic Millionaires who know a thing or two about money, to show a clear, robust model for how you could introduce a wealth tax, a modest tax by the standards of many European countries, asking for people with wealth and assets over 10 million to pay a 2% tax on their assets over that level. That would raise tens of billions a year that we can invest in rebalancing the economy so it's working for ordinary people, whether that's supporting disabled people who are losing their benefits, pensioners losing their winter fuel allowance, restoring our NHS, which is severely overstretched and threatened with further cuts from this government. And of course we need to invest in a healthy, clean environment for the future. All of these things are about rebalancing the economy so it works for ordinary people.
On the issue of austerity and welfare cuts, research published by the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health in 2022 found that more than 330,000 excess deaths between 2012 and 2019 could be attributed to Tory austerity. It's my opinion that Labour's proposed welfare cuts will kill people too. Do you agree?
It's clearly the case that cuts to public services, cuts to vital support for people with disabilities, pensioners with their winter fuel allowance, those things have already caused huge damage and yes, resulted in loss of life under the last government, and they will so more under this government, because whether it's the Conservatives or Labour making cuts to public services, removing vital support from vulnerable people whoever's doing that, it's going to have a major impact on ordinary people. And that's why Greens are saying we need to rebalance the economy to protect the most vulnerable, to invest in our health service, to ensure we have a livable future. And Rachel Reeves can make that choice if she takes on the political will to do so.
Research published by the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health in 2022 found that more than 330,000 excess deaths between 2012 and 2019 could be attributed to Tory austerity. It's my opinion that Labour's proposed welfare cuts will kill people too. Do you agree?
That stat is absolutely shocking, but unfortunately not surprising. We know that the Conservatives' ideology of austerity has failed, and I do not understand why a Labour government are following them down that same path when the evidence has shown the harm it's had over the last 15 years. People voted for Labour because they thought they were going to get change, but it's becoming increasingly obvious day by day that we are not going to get the change we hope for from this Labour government.
And just finally, just on the party as a whole, according to a recent YouGov poll, 50% of people that are considering voting Green are worried that it will be a wasted vote. How are the Greens going to shift this perception?
Well, we had a record result at last year's general election. Greens elected in record numbers, just as we have been in local elections year in, year out over the last 5 years. We're a growing party, our membership is growing, and the only wasted vote is a vote for a party that's doing something that you don't actually support. And this government is implementing policies that are so different to what Labour voters thought they were voting for at last year's election, whether it's the cuts to the NHS, removing vital support from the most vulnerable in society, failing to tackle the climate emergency. So if people want a fairer, greener future, voting for the Green Party to grow our support, put the pressure on this government that's needed to act in the right direction. That's what's going to make a difference as we build a movement for real change.